And let's wish everybody Shabbat Shalom. We want to welcome Dr. Korazim. She's been here many times before, so I don't have to read your whole resume.
No, don't.
But basically, in one word, this is the greatest teacher of Jewish literature in the world. Easy, right? And I studied with Rachel here. I've studied with Rachel in Israel. I've studied with Rachel at Yad Vashem. I've studied with Rachel in other happier places. And each time she has a remarkable ability to open our eyes to literatures that most of us who live in the diaspora don't have access to. And to realize there is a whole world of creativity, literature, vision that is ours, that is our legacy. We are so delighted to have you.
Toda Rabba, Rabbi Feinstein. Thank you for an amazing introduction. You all have the text in your hand? That is great. Anybody curious about more biographical details about me? I'll tell you the essential. I make an amazing chocolate mousse. I'm a scuba diver, and I have 8 grandchildren, 6 of whom are girls. Is there anything else you need to know about me? Not really. If yes, see me after class. On May 14th, 70 years ago, in 1946, my mother, Chava, Bat Shimon, and Chana had arrived on a clandestine illegal immigrant boat to the Haifa port, a boat that the Brits had caught and incarcerated in the Atlit camp for Ma'apilim. She arrived in May. I was born as a Sabra in October of that year. I must have been part of that experience, although my memories are quite hazy on that one. My mother didn't live to see the 70th anniversary of her Aliyah, which is today. I'd like to be allowed to dedicate this learning to her memory and all the Mapilim and the people who helped them come to a safe shore in those horrible years after the Holocaust. Biblical motifs in modern Israeli literature. About 10 years ago, 12 I'm going to say, 2004, an anthology appeared in Israel in which Milka Shaked, the great scholar of literature, they are much greater Morim and Gdoilim than me, she had created an anthology of Israeli poetry based on Tanakh, on Torah. It has 2 volumes. One of them is the text, and one of them is commentary. Like, we are Jews. We do a little bit of text and a huge commentary. This is how we study. And when I was trying to explore how did Milka Shaked decide where to start? Like, from what point will she start collecting all those Israeli poems that relate to biblical motifs? Obviously, she stopped at our contemporary times when she edited the book. But when did she start? And then I looked, and the answer was very simple. She started where the previous anthology had ended, 50 years before that. Now, if you want to read that book, you need to have Hebrew because it was never translated. And you also need to be a good Torah scholar because she had arranged the poems neither in chronological order nor in alphabetical one. What she had done, she arranged them according to Torah. So Adam comes before Noach, and Noach comes before Abraham, and so on. Being an Orthodox woman, she separated the men from the women. So now, hang on for a minute. So Rachel would be, after Yaakov, before that, on that side. So it's really a quest when you want to find a poem in that book. But it's worth it. Most of the collection that I have created, a little bit of it, for you today was picked from that and some of my other knowledge. And now a question. Milka Shaked had placed on the cover page of her book, the book is called in Hebrew, Lanetzach Anagnech, which translates, I shall sing you or play your music, the nigun, Anagnech, nigun, I will play you forever. It's a quote from another poet's literature. It's a quote from Alterman, Lanetzach Anagnech. So you need to know Israeli literature as well to just understand this. She had placed on the cover page one poem. Would that not mean to you that that would be in her heart the most important of them all? Right. So question to you. If you're quickly thinking about your knowledge of Tanakh and Torah and Nevi'im and Ketuvim, okay? which would be the biblical theme most current that most Israeli Hebrew poets will pick up and will want to talk about, relate to, argue with, offer a modern midrash? Which would that be? Come on, give me a guess. Exodus, for sure, yeah. No, try again. Who said that? Bingo. The Akedah. The Akedah. Now, in the spirit of these days, can you not understand why a major theme in Israeli poetry would be a father who needs to sacrifice his son? Would that be a surprise to you? No, it wouldn't. The Akedah is the most current theme in modern Israeli poetry while relating to biblical motifs, so we are following that. Okay? This is what we shall do. We shall not do all of it, just a little bit. In this Roman hall and place, do I need to remind you of the story of the Akedah, or may I assume that we all remember it? Okay. So we shall start by looking at the Akedah with me making a further comment. You do know Israelis, do you not? I know about one woman whose Hebrew sounded to me like an Israeli one sitting in the room. Is there another? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I need witnesses. This is why I'm asking. So I'm going to make a statement, and I will need everybody who has an Israeli background, like not even born but raised in that country, went through its school system. Here is my statement. In Israel, fluency in biblical stories is not connected to your level of observance. Right? Amen? Not lying in synagogue? I repeat, to be fluent in Torah, Nevi'im, prophets, and Ketuvim, Chronicles, stories for an Israeli has nothing to do with what they eat, how they observe or not Shabbat, and whether they even have the chutzpah to go to the beach on Yom Kippur. Okay? Totally unconnected. Yeah. I know. But there are not even any lifeguards. I don't. And I'm what they call non-observant, or whatever names they stick to people like myself in Israel. So you need to know that the poems we are reading are not read in synagogue. This is stuff that will come into your quote-unquote public school system readers. This is stuff that will be published in your papers, and they always have some sort of contemporary connection. So we are reading with Chaim Guri. Now, from all the poets I will be mentioning today, the only one, Baruch Hashem, who is still with us, Yibadel L'chaim Arukim, is Chaim Guri. The gentleman was born in 23, so he is 93 years of age at 120, published his book, about which I dared say in public about a month ago, his last book, and the whole audience yelled at me, his latest. Not his last, his latest. Okay? So his latest was published a couple of months ago. And wow, what a presence. I teach a lot of Guri, will do the one. So we are coming to a poem called in Hebrew, Yerusha. And I'd like to have your indulgence and patience for me to read at least that one, and then we'll see if you'll allow me to do the others in Ivrit first, so that we hear at least the sound, the rhythm of the thing. Ha'ayil ba acharon. ולא ידע אברהם כי הוא משיב על שאלת הילד ראשית עונו בעת יומו הרב. נשא ראשו הסב בראותו כי לא חלם חלום, והמלאך ניצב, נשרה המאכלת מידו. הילד שהותר מייסוריו ראה את גב אביו, יצחק כמסופר לא הועלה קורבן. הוא חי ימים רבים, ראה בטוב, עד אור עיניו כהה. אבל את השעה ההיא הוריש לצאצאיו, הם נולדים ומאכלת בליבם. Oi. Oi. We'll come to the English in a moment. All of them are oi. Just spare your breath. The ram came last. So I did say I will not remind you of the story because for sure you know it, but you remember. Kach et bincha, take your son, I have more than one at Yechidcha, each one of them is Yechid to Emor. We all that debate. Go to that place. And then we have the story of the journey from Beersheba to Har Moriah. 3 days. Does Torah tell us what happened on those 3 days? Oh, yes, it does. With silence. Because Torah says, Uvayom HaShlishi, and on the 3rd day, Vayisa Avraham et einav, and Abraham raised his eyes and saw the mountain. It tells you a lot about the 3 days. If only on the 3rd day did he raise his eyes. He was going with his eyes in the ground, not facing his son, not facing the view, not facing anything. Only on the Yom HaShlishi, the 3rd day. And then leave the servants and the asses and then climb the mountain and the questions and the binding. Oi! And Chaim Guri will have none of that? He will start his poem with the happy ending? The cavalry had arrived, he's arrived, no gamarno. What's to tell? No, says Chaim Guri. Our story as a nation is not finished at the moment that the ram came. It may just start there. So ha'ayil ba acharon, the ram came last. And Abraham did not know that he came in answer to the boy's request, his first strength at the time of his waning day. So first of all, Chaim Guri is actually having the chutzpah as a Sabra, non-observant Israeli, to offer a new midrash on the Akedah. And I'm inviting you to have the generosity to consider Israeli poetry as an additional level of midrash on Torah. Okay? And he says, I know that all along as they were climbing, Yitzchak must have been praying over the head of his father, don't let him do it, don't let him do it, don't let him do it. Okay? And Chaim Guri is sort of totally identifying not with Abraham, but with Yitzchak. And he even makes Abraham non-cognizant of the fact that Yitzchak is constantly having a dialogue with God. Don't let him do it. Look at the translation, those of you who can admire that, because the Hebrew says that it is Meshiv al she'elat hayeled, and she'elah in Hebrew can be question, Masha'ah, what's the time? But it can also be a request, Mayim sha'al chalav natana. You can ask for something. The English translator had to make a choice. But the Hebrew carries the two meanings because Yitzchak did ask those questions on the way, you remember, in Torah. And now Chaim Guri says, yeah, question, but also request. Don't let him do it. And Abraham doesn't know that this is the guy, who is Yitzchak, his first strength at the time of his waning day. And now he is looking at Abraham. The old man raised his head when he saw that he was not dreaming. Oh, so Abraham too was having wishful thinking. Abraham too was praying for something. It's not that Guri is that cruel. He just recognized Yitzchak's request, and now he totally sees that Abraham may have been praying as well and dreaming as well. It's so easy for us, especially young Israelis at the time that this is written, to not see the father generation, to see just the Yitzchak generation. Guri is not there. He can get it that Abraham too was dreaming and wishful thinking. There's lots more text here.
Thank you.
Please, anybody. Okay. So the old man raised his head when he saw that he was not dreaming, and the angel stood. V'hamalach nitzav. Again, we have a problem with the translation. because stud is not exactly nitzav. When you go to Parashat Nitzavim, you know the additional meaning that we add to that word of standing to listen, being present, saying hineni, all that. But then again, Abraham understands about saying hineni. So maybe it is there, but the English cannot carry it. Okay? And the angel stood with the knife falling from his hand. So now we have the gravest lacuna in the translation. Now give me a break, knife. Knife in regular Hebrew is sakin. But Guri did not use sakin. Guri used ma'achelet. And the place in Torah, the only one where the word ma'achelet is used, is the Akedah. So Guri the Hebrew gave him a special word, the ma'achelet, the one and only that the father was contemplating using on his son. And now the Hebrew verb, nashra, like leaves in the fall, totally helplessly, without any power, without any strength, he just let it go. He's finished, Avraham. He cannot even drop the ma'achelet, according to Guri. He totally sees the lassitude, the fatigue, the end of it for Avraham. Okay, die. You know, thank God, but die. Let it go. Let it fall. And the angel stood with the knife falling for, it's the Abraham, okay. The child, freed from his bonds, saw his father's back. 2 words here. I know that Midrash often says that Yitzchak was not a child, that he was a grown man, that he may even have a grade. Guri, however, in his mind, needs the image of the child, of the helplessness, of the youth, of the not being able to be part of the decision. Because immediately in the next line, and by the way, most of the artists painting the Akedah will have a younger image. So it's really different interpretations. And now comes Guri with a very important line. Saw his father's back. So as Yitzchak was unbound, Abraham could not face him. He doesn't see his father's eyes. How is this family coming down from that mountain? We know how they went up. Nobody tells us how they came down. That's for us to figure out. Guri knows. They could not look at each other anymore. That's his midrash. And now, switch of a tone. We'll find it in Amichai as well, before the end of a poem. And he goes into the storytelling mode. Yitzchak mesupar, I'm going to tell you a story. As the story says, Yitzchak, it is said, was not offered as a sacrifice. He lived a very long time. Ra'a yamim rabim. He didn't live. He saw, this is a quote, Ra'a yamim rabim. He saw many days. Yitzchak, it is said, was not offered. He lived a very long time, seeing the good, until the light of his eyes dimmed. But he bequeathed that hour to his descendants. They are born with a knife in their heart. And the poem is called Yerusha, heritage. This is what we have inherited, says Chaim Guri, in the early 50s, immediately after the War of Independence, which is the traumatic experience for that generation who had not lived through the Shoah. They were in Israel. Now, I'm looking at the watch because I'm hesitant whether to tell you the story, but I will. I'm going to say about 15 years ago, maybe, I was still working for the Jewish Agency in Yerushalayim, and we already had distance learning with much more complicated apparatus than Skype today, but we did. And one of the crazy things that I have done, and I'm known for having done all sorts of weird things, I was teaching a class of Hebrew poetry in English to a group of students in Warsaw, Poland. I did that. I still do stuff like that. Now, had it been Budapest, that's not a big chokhmah because I speak Hungarian. But Polish, I do not speak. But there is this head of the Jewish Adult Education Center. You know, there are living Jews in Poland. So there is this adult education center called the Moshe Shor Center, and its director who has this Polish name like Grażyna Pawlak. Go ahead and say it, okay? Grażyna Pawlak. So Grażyna comes to visit us at the Jewish Agency, and she discovered we become friends, and she wants me to teach this class. So this is a week between Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, this time of the year. And we are meeting once a week. It is 7 o'clock from me in Yerushalayim, 6 in Warsaw, an hour earlier, because they finish work, they come to the class, I stay long at work, and then I'll go home. I send the text ahead of time. Magda, translator, translates into Polish. I send an English copy, I send a Hebrew copy, whatever is easier. Magda speaks both. Then we go online. They see me on the screen. I see them on the screen. Magda is sitting there. I say 2 sentences. She translates back and forth. We do the poem. It's the week between Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron. What else shall I teach? We reach the end, and I, the Israeli, know teaching these people in Poland. I'm adding the following. I said, Chaverim, friends, I'm saying it to you as well, these last 2 lines were always read in Israel as Chaim Guri's comment about our situation, about the ongoing need for fathers to send their sons off to war. Up till that moment, total peace and quiet, politeness, you know, they are Europeans, not Israelis. I say that, and Anya, whom I know back in Warsaw, she's a Hebrew teacher. She could speak straight Ivrit to me if she wanted to, but she's polite. So throughout the session, she is waiting for Magda to translate, and she speaks in Polish, whatever. This time she cannot hold, and she's yelling at me, like a good Israeli, which she is not. And she goes, you Israelis, everything has to be about you. Can you not see that this is a universal statement? This is as much about us as it is about you. My lesson went kaput. Okay. All those of you, who ever prepared the lesson plan or a drasha or whatever know how annoying that is, how you can barely pick up your pieces. I did somehow. Driving home, it's like already 8:30, 9 o'clock, dead tired. So where did I go wrong? What could I have done differently? Is it maybe not so bad? How shall I pick it up next week? You know, that kind of stuff. Now, the next morning, you're going to think that this could not be true. But trust me, just on one basis, I couldn't invent it. So it has to be true. Next day, work day, still the week between Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron. I have a meeting with Yael Guri, Chaim Guri's daughter. Like, could I invent this? We are working on a course in literature. She's also a literature teacher, an amazing one, Yael Guri. And she comes with her paper. She's totally anti-laptops and whatever, so it's all paper and handwritten. And I said, Yael, hang on for a minute. We were doing second Aliyah poetry course. And I said, hang on, Yael, I need to tell you something. And I tell her what happened last night. And she starts smiling. So I said, Yael, what are you smiling at? She says, for the last 30 years, this is an argument between Abba and me. I read it like you do, and he says that the poet didn't mean it. He had never meant it. And suddenly I have one of those strokes that we sometimes like ideas while teaching, and I said, Yael, can I invite your father to do the next class to the group in Poland? He says, I don't know, I'll ask him. We go home, ta-ra-ta-ta, Yom Ha'atzmaut, Yom HaZikaron, come back from work, on my email, one email from Yael, she did do email, and she goes, Abba Amar Ken, Dad said yes. Wow. Like in Poland, I'm writing to them. The Israeli ambassador shows up. The head of the Polish Association of Poets and Writers shows up with a bouquet of flowers to hand it on the TV screen to Chaim Guri, who sits in Yerushalayim. And Chaim Guri came, and the first thing he had asked was for Magda to read him his poem in Polish, which was a big moment. And then he said, with all due respect to the generation of my daughter and to Rachel Korozim, when I wrote it, it was the early 50s. We didn't have the sequence of words that we have since. I was not even seeing that possibility to happen. But you know what? Once a poem had sent a poem out to the world, it's not his anymore. It's yours. Your reading is absolutely okay. All right? So I am giving you Chaim Guri. Any comments before we turn the page? Rabbi? Anything that comes to your mind?
I will, but keep talking.
Keep talking. I'll keep talking. I will keep talking. We turn our eyes to page number 3, and we are reading from the last, unfortunately, because Amichai had died in the year 2000, and we are reading from Open, Shut Open. That was published in the mid-90s. Amichai was an amazingly creative poet, but he never put any of his creativity into giving his poems titles. So we always come up with the first line for a title. And do not go to Open, Shut Open and go to page 30 to find this, because this is the page on the Hebrew edition, and it was just a note for myself to know where to find it. So just look for Abraham had 3 sons. Yehuda Amichai, born in the year 1924 in Germany to what one would call today a modern Orthodox family. I think if you had asked Amichai's father, he would say, Jewish, you mean? They made Aliyah to Palestine/Eretz Israel, not yet the state, in the year 1936. So all our collective minds are going into our inner clocks and are saying, Germany to Palestine, 36 in time to Dalael. The child Amichai at 12, like many a child of immigrants, will want to out-Israeli every Israeli, and therefore off goes the kippah, off goes the German name, off goes orthodoxy and observance, and he will want to become a Palmachnik to fight for the state of Israel. He participated in all the wars that his age would allow, and becomes very, very early one of the major poetic voices of Israel, and we keep going back to his poetry time and again. Open, Shut Open is the last book that was published in his lifetime. He passed away Erev Rosh Hashanah 2000, and we were hoping, thinking that maybe there was stuff left behind in the drawers. Nothing was found. 2 years later, they published the final edition of Amichai poetry, and then 3 years ago, poems are found here in America that have been sent to 2 separate women with whom he had very early connections, emotional connections and stuff, and probably there will be a revised Amichai anthology, so we'll have to buy a new set, both of us, and we will do it lovingly. Okay? This is one of my favorite, because this is clearly the Midrashic tone. Clearly. Like coming in between the lines and say, you do not get the story, let me tell you what happened there. Okay? Abraham had 3 sons, not 2. You're not getting it right. You always are focusing on Isaac and Ishmael. That's not the way it was. It is also saying something else. Abraham had 3 sons, Yishmael, Yitzchak, and Yivkeh. Let's do Hebrew. This is meant, the translator, Hannah Bloch from Berkeley, left the names like that in Hebrew because she is using the most ancient and most efficient tool in Jewish education, guilt. You ought to feel guilty that you do not get the Hebrew, so by next time I come, we can all do this in Ivrit. Yishmael will hear God. Yitzchak will laugh, Sarah laughing, and Yivke will weep, will cry. Nobody ever heard about Yivke because he was the small one, the beloved son who was sacrificed on Mount Moriah. I don't believe you, Torah. It's not possible that nothing died on top of that mountain. Don't give me miracles, don't give me a ram. Something tragic happened on that mountain. Something was sacrificed. I see that as another child. That family had sacrificed something that day on the mountain, and Torah is covering up for us. Move away that screen. Look at the things as they were. Ishmael was saved by his mother Hagar. Yitzchak was rescued by the angel. What kind of a father did that make Abraham? You know that we need somebody to save his children from him. But nobody saved Yivke. When he was small, his father lovingly named him Yivke, Yivk, my lovely little Yevk, but he sacrificed him at the Akedah, the binding. The Torah says it was a ram, but it was Yivke. I know, says Amichai. I know, I've sent kids to the army. It was Yivke. Ishmael never again heard God. Yishma will hear. Yitzchak never laughed again. Sure, because Gori told us he was born with a knife in his heart. And Sarah only laughed once, never again. Abraham had 3 sons. Yishma will hear. Yitzchak will laugh. Yivke. Yishmael, God will hear God. Or Yitzchak El, God will laugh. Yivke El, God will weep. Told you all of them were wow. Now take a deep breath, because Rabbi had promised you that I will try and open windows for you to Israeli society. It's not just any name that Amichai is giving to that third sacrificed son. He calls him Yivke because as an Israeli, he knows that what we have sacrificed at the beginning of our battles is our ability to weep. And Israeli society had demanded time and again from friends of the fallen soldiers and from families of the fallen soldiers not to shed a tear, to clench your teeth, to be strong, and to keep doing it for the next war and the next war and the war. The biggest compliment a bereaved mother could have had in early Israeli dialogue was, and mother never shed a tear. You know? And that's mother. Later on, mothers will be allowed to seen weeping. Fathers? Chas v'chalila. It's only in the late 80s, if you have still been in Israel at the time, that we hear for the first time in popular music an absolutely heart-wrenching song. Not big poetry, just a pop song. Hagvarim bochim b'layla. You remember it? Men weep at night, the 80s. So we give you guys permission to weep, but please do it at night when nobody sees. So Amichai is coming back here in the mid-90s and lamenting the sacrifice of weeping. Lamenting the fact that Israeli society sort of willingly had given up on its permission to cry and to weep. To this day, if Israeli television is allowed, because it depends on the family, to be present at the burial of a fallen soldier, and if the cameraman will catch any of his friends weeping, and they will screen it, the next day you will start having the talk back. Why do you need to show it? It's ammunition for our own enemies. Nobody should see that. In my time, soldiers did not weep. La 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 la. It's still part of the language 20 years later. Okay? It's still part of the language. So this, of course, has a midrashic value, rereading the Akedah. But most of Amichai poetry, the choice of the theme, the way it is written, if you live within that culture, you will be totally able to uncover the codes and what he's saying there. Questions, comments before I move to my next one? Okay.
It's not just that we can't laugh, that we can't cry.
Or
They
here.
don't cry either.
Uh-huh.
Ishmael's out there. That's
The other one, yeah.
The Arabs.
Uh-huh.
Ishmael's the Arabs. They don't cry either.
Everybody from that family is not crying anymore.
So what's missing in the conflict, Yitzhak Ishmael is the conflict,
Mm-hmm.
is the quality of tragedy. Like, you guys have gotten so nationalistic, you've forgotten how much you've sacrificed. You've forgotten the heart. Neither side cries.
Both Ishmael and Yitzhak need their little brother Yivke.
And the last line is remarkable because it's not just Ishmael, Yitzhak, it's also, he grew up in that world. It's Yitzhak.
Itzik.
Yitzkele,
Itzkele.
Yivkele, Yishmael, there's a fatherly love. There's a
Ishmaelinka.
tenderness. Yeah, it's bubble. There's a tenderness that's missing in that part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We've become hard, and they've become hard, and in our hardness, we're killing each other. And until we bring back the tears, the softness,
The little brother.
the tenderness, there's a piece of us that's missing,
Thank
and
you.
that's locked us into this conflict.
Mm-hmm. Toda Rabbi. Yes, you were raising your hand.
That's what happens to a society that's not allowed to grieve.
Mm-hmm. You could put that in the plural. That is Rabbi's suggestion. To societies who are not allowed to weep. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Lisa, can I trouble you to get me the water? It's just standing there. Thank you. Rabbi Feinstein, I'm so happy for your comment about the Bubale and Yitzchakale and this warm tone, because it's totally the tone of the next Amichai poem that we are going to read. Still Akedah related. I could go on now a whole semester with Akedah related Israeli poetry, which I'm not going to do today. I'm watch very carefully. It's the classical. Too warm, too close. Turn it off, turn it on. We know.
It's a menopausal syndrome.
I love that.
I live this life. In the middle of the night, there are no blankets on the bed.
We are still in Open, Shut Open, and please do not go for this poem to page 119. It's the Hebrew version. It's just for me, not for you. But I enjoy sort of saying that every single time. It's a guilt thing. Go to the Hebrew. And I need to tell you about tiyulim, hikes, plural. The tiyul thing is a very Israeli thing. You do hikes with your school. You do hikes with your youth movement. You do hikes during your military service, and you do hikes with your family. If you are a non-observant family, you will do it on Shabbat and Chag. If you are an observant family, you'll do it on Chol HaMoed, you know? But we still do the hikes. And families go hiking. And one of the places families go hiking, especially at the time when Amichai is a father and when I am a parent for young people, they're long gone and doing their own tiyulim on their own, is go to places where battles took place. There is this amazing forest in like Western Galilee, Atara Shayara, where a caravan, a convoy that was sent to help a particular kibbutz, Kibbutz Yechiam, was caught on the way and all participants killed. Of course you'd go to the Gush, to the tree in the Gush. What else shall you do? And you will go to the Negev and you will show your kids, etc. So now Amichai is doing a reverse thing. He will say, since I'm doing tiyulim with my kids, I must have come from somewhere. That tradition came to me from somewhere. So I'm figuring Abraham must have done the same, because how else would I know to do stuff like that? Like, so the basic assumption that if I am doing something, it must have come to me through the generations. And therefore, he reverses the order of things. Every year, our father Abraham takes his son to Mount Moriah, the same way that I take my children to the Negev hills where my war took place. Couldn't we spend a session on this line alone? First of all, the reversal. Abraham is doing like me. And I know that because if I'm doing it, Abraham must have done it, so therefore I do it, and therefore I know that he's doing it like me. And every year, on the Yortzeit of the Akedah, Abraham must be schlepping the whole family to the site. How do I know that? Because I do it. Every year on the Yortzeit of my war, I'm taking my kids to that place of the battle in the Negev, about which there is an amazing poem. I just taught it the day before yesterday at Tarbut v'Torah in Irvine for their Yom HaZikaron thing. So Abraham must be doing this. But also look at the qualification. I had my battles to face, losing my friends, sacrificing. And that other thing, that was Abraham's war of independence. He's bringing the biblical story into the everyday Israeli lingo. We have our war of independence, so did Abraham. He fought it there on Mount Moriah. So therefore, he must, like us, go back to the place of battle to tell his kids, because this is what Jews do, right? Well, at least in Israel. Every year, our father Abraham takes his son to Mount Moriah, the same way that I take my children to the Negev hills, where my war took place. I'm reading it again to offer another reading. If you grew up in Israeli schools, if you raise kids who went to Israeli schools, they will come the day of the yearly big hike, called in Hebrew, Hatiyul Hashnati. And then there will be in the early years handwritten pages with copying, not photo, but CC, carbon copy. Okay? That the teacher will hand out to us so that our parents will know what to pack for us. And it will say sandwiches for the first day, and it will say a change of linen, and it will say a hat, and it will say water, and then it will say two very Israeli things: musical instrument and Tanakh. And the Hebrew goes Tanakh ukli negina. Do you remember that? Tanakh, and always the last on the list. We are going to sing along because this is what Israelis do instead of coming to shul, right? So we need the kli negina. And we need Tanakh because knowledge of Tanakh is not connected to our level of observance, it's connected to the tiyul. You go to the place, to the Gilboa, you open Haray Gilboa al Tal val Matar Alechem, you know Samuel Bet chapter 1, and you read. And you go to the Valley of Jezreel and you open the book of Judges, Gideon and Charod, and you read. So Amichai is doing with his kids that biblical-like kind of experience. You're going to the place of battle, and although it's in the Negev, and the battle was different, but you will be talking about Abraham. Okay? And therefore he's now imagining what could have happened in those Abraham family tiyulim, hiking. It's all fantasy. Maybe they spoke about Yehuda Amichai and his children, you think? No. Abraham walks with his sons. This is where I left the servants. That's where I tied the ass to the tree at the foot of the hill. And here, right at this spot, you ask me, Isaac, my son, here is the fire and the woods, but where is the lamb for sacrifice? A little further up, you asked me again. Now we have the Nusach Avraham of the story according to Amichai. This is what Avraham remembers. This is what he's telling the grandchildren and the children. When they reached the top of the mountain, they rested a while and ate. Now, what else would they do? It's a picnic day. Tuna sandwiches? Maybe. And drank. And he showed them the thicket where the ram was caught by its horn. Abraham remembers what he needs to remember. And when Abraham died, Isaac took his sons to the same spot. Here I lifted up the wood, and that's where I stopped for a breath. This is where I asked my father, and he replied, God will provide the lamb for the sacrifice. And that's where I knew that it was me. Oh, the Yitzchak Nosach. Totally different. The first thing he remembers is the breathlessness. He was choking. He had no air. He remembers in his body. Okay? I lifted the wood, and that's where I stopped for breath. I couldn't breathe on that mountain. How come Abba doesn't remember that? And this is where you told me, yeah, I'm not going to tell you about the question. You know that from Saba already. I'm telling you what he said to me. And then I'm telling you what he didn't say. The moment I came into my own. The moment I knew it was me. The moment of the Yitzchak's awareness that it's time to be sacrificed. And when Yitzchak became blind, his sons brought him to the same Mount Moriah and described to him in words all those things that he may already have forgotten. And in the Hasidic tradition of, going to the forest and saying, lighting the fire and saying the prayer and then not knowing the forest and la 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 la, Yehuda Amichai places himself on that tradition. I am also part of the Jewish storytellers. And I can tell you this, and I can still hear the way Abraham said it, and I know what Yitzchak would have said, and I know what happened when he became a little bit forgetful, and we only had the words and not the sight anymore. And then I created this poem, and it will be read, and you will be telling maybe your friends about it. We are all on that line of telling the Jewish story. You may as well want to hike while you do it, because hiking is the tradition. Comments on this one?
Rachel?
Yes.
I was wondering when you said about the mothers not crying for the fallen soldiers, and here this is the male side of the story. And in the Tanakh, it just says, I think, and Sarah lived in Beersheba.
Not even that. All the Tanakh has to...
There's no mother.
I was wondering if I brought you the mother poem. No, I did not. You'll have to ask me to come again. because there is an amazing Sarah Akedah poem by Judith Kafri that we read last year with Rabbi Nina when we did the women's voices. And this is why I did not include it this time, but you did not come to that minyan, so, So we'll actually, if you're interested, I can email you, Rabbi, that poem again to be shared with this congregant and others who may know. An amazing Sarah voice. It's not missing from Israeli poetry. It was just my choice today not to include it. Okay. All right. Can we go on? Oi. You think the earlier ones were oi? Let me show you oi. Go to page 5. We're not talking about a different poet, way less known than either Guri or Yehuda Amichai. Avner Treinin was a chemist by trade, a pharmacist. בבקשה. He was published amazing poetry. He was also a laureate of the Israel Award, the Israel Prize that is handed out on Yom Ha'atzmaut, so that would be like the day before yesterday, not this year, many years ago, because he had died. And he comes into a totally different tradition of basing your story on Tanakh events, on biblical motifs. It comes from the difficulty, rather the impossibility of telling a Holocaust story. Because all literary telling, no matter which way you look at it, relies heavily on comparison, on analogy, on metaphor. Let it illustrate it for you in the simplest mode. The princess, the beautiful princess, had eyes as blue as the sky. And her black hair was as black as the night. Thank you very much. And the brave prince who came to rescue her from whatever was as courageous as, thank you, well done, the lion, Yofi. So all this relies on the storyteller's knowledge that you have seen the sea, you know the night, and you heard something about lions, okay? So therefore he can compare. But Auschwitz as what? No, you haven't seen how. It doesn't work. The analogy needs to rely on something the reader recognizes. Otherwise, it's not an analogy. So Holocaust writers do not have analogies. There is nothing to compare it to. So they have to reinvent literature to do it in a different thing. The Hebrew Israeli Jewish writer also works for some Christians, knows something about his or her readers. You do not know Auschwitz, but you know Torah. And therefore you know the stories. And therefore you have that first-hand experience those early tragedies. The first assassination, the first betrayal in a family. You know, the book of Genesis is all about dysfunctioning families. You know that. So he can rely on our knowledge of the story of Joseph and his brothers, and he can address us and say, you think that was bad? Well, let me tell you. So let's remind ourselves quickly. Joseph, son of Rachel, a little bit pampered by Abba. He gets that amazing shirt that is... No, that's Hollywood. That's Broadway. In Torah, it says kutonet hapasim, the striped shirt, not many colors. Read Torah in the Ivrit, please, not the Hollywood musicals, which is a beautiful midrash, but we go back to essentials. It was striped. Probably it was more expensive to weave a striped thing, took more care, and therefore Joseph gets one and all the others do not, only him. And then this guy has the chutzpah to dream and to interpret, and he's chief and that, you know, like it's a big machel. And even when his brothers are sent out to be with the sheep, he gets to stay at home. And then after a while, his father may be having second thoughts. So he's sending that, go find your brothers, maybe work a little bit, you know. And on the way, he has this amazing encounter. Because, you know, he's so pampered and so kept away from the family duties that he doesn't even know where the grazing fields of the family are. So he needs to ask the gentleman on the way and tell him what? Oh, that sentence. Et echai anochi mevakesh. I'm looking for my brothers. And there is not one single rabbi in the world who did not tell you on the drasha of that week of the reading that it's not about GPS directions. It's about reaching out to his brothers. Et echai anochi mevakesh. I want to find them, finally. And then he comes, oy vey. They grab him, put him in a hole. They want to kill him. One of them intervenes. Let's not kill him. Let's sell him down to the Egyptians, you know, the Midianites, the caravan, and so on. And then they go back to their father, and now they have to tell him a lie. They have to tell him that Joseph had died. How would you tell? I mean, the cruelty of that. I mean, you know he's not dead, or you hope at least. There's a chance. So they slaughter a goat, dip the striped shirt, which they, of course, took off his back, dip it in blood, come to Abba, and they do not even need to say a word. There was just the one striped shirt, so he recognizes immediately. And he says again, that's classical sentence, tarof toraf Yosef, the double devouring, tarof toraf. Okay, and he knows. And then they don't tell him, and they don't tell him, and they don't tell him. And Joseph rises, and there is hunger, and they go, and the Benjamin, etc. And finally, happy ending. And Father Jacob reunites with his beloved son Joseph in Egypt. Go figure. I reminded you of that because unlike the Akedah, sometimes we may tend to forget the Joseph story details. So I gave you a little bit of that so we can come to the poem that is heavily relying on it. Velo kin'u bo he'achim. And his brothers did not envy him. It starts straight in your face. Your basic story is that the brothers were envious. Well, that's your Torah story, not my story in Auschwitz. In Auschwitz, brothers would not need to be envious of a striped shirt. And his brothers did not envy him his striped shirt, in which they too were clothed when they were driven off the rails. Toda Rabba, thank you very much. The biblical symbol and metaphor for a unique fatherly love, the striped shirt, is trained into the symbol of disdain and disregard to any human dignity. Just like the yellow star. That which you think will protect you, Magen David, will turn into that which will endanger your life. The same with the shirt in Auschwitz. So brothers would not need to be envious. Now look at what is lost in translation. I'm reading the Hebrew. ולא קינאו בו האחים על כתונת הפסים שבה הלבישו גם אותם כשהורדו מן הפסים. In Hebrew, stripes and rails is the same word. Oh, so pasim, they were not envious of the pasim shirt when they were forced down from the rails.
English is bad because driven off the rails is an English idiom.
Yeah.
It means something very different.
No, it means the same in Hebrew as well.
No, here it means taken off the train. When they disembarked from the train.
No, but Hebrew also, לרדת מהפסים is to go nuts.
Really?
Oh, yeah. ירד מהפסים is, look at all the Hebrew speakers. It's the same. Training is playing. You go into the world of madness. You are forced off the train. You are totally right, Rabbi. And at the time, in Hebrew, like very, everyday language, slang almost, you were driven into the land of craziness. The Hebrew carries both meanings. The English slightly manages translation, not so bad this time. And then we continue with the negation. The whole poem is built on negating. I gave you the psukim underneath, and how the Genesis pasuk, the Genesis verse, is in the positive, and the poem negates it. Velo, 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 velo. He did not dream, nor did he interpret, neither did he rise from the sheaf, and the goat kid was not diminished when the shirt was dipped in blood. In Auschwitz, if somebody would want to show a father a striped shirt with blood stains on it so that they could tell him that his son had died, would they need to slaughter a goat in Auschwitz to have some blood stains on the shirt? No. Plenty of blood around, thank you very much. No goat would be diminished. It was only people who were killed there. Okay? And now the tragic line of the poem, because the tragedy of Bereshit was that there was one shirt, one Joseph, one Yaakov. And therefore he recognized. In Auschwitz, ve'avihem lo hikira. And their fathers did not recognize it. How could he possibly? If he had more than one son in that place, how would he know the one shirt from the other? Why? Kirabu b'nei zekunav. Because the children of his old age were many. could this be just about the Jacob father figure, or could Trining be calling upon another father here? Ve'avihem lo hikira. And his father didn't recognize them. Where were you, Abba? Why did you not recognize us back there? Because we were too many? Because you couldn't protect all of us? The one you could take all the ways to become a big macher in Egypt, but we were too many for you? He merely murmured the wild beast and never saw them again. Torah may have a happy ending story. Ours did not. No happy ending stories in Auschwitz. Note that the only thing that stays in the positive, not the negation, in the poem as compared to Torah is the expression chaya ra'ah, wild beast. As if Trining would be suggesting that grain of wild beast, that grain of evil that we could recognize the beginning of back there in Torah grew 6 million fold in my time. But it's evil. You can recognize it when it's small. Do not let it become that which it became. Comments? Pardon? Yeah, but Trining is gone, so we'll need to look for another poem to address what is happening in our days. I'd like to finish on a note that may bring a smile to your face. It's a relatively old poem. It's from somewhere in the 60s. And Yitzhak Shalev was a teacher of Tanakh. And I always love to close my biblical motif sessions with his poem because he is the one who started the custom of going on hikes with a Tanakh in your hand, because he was a Tanakh teacher. And all our teachers who sent the note to our parents to pick up a Tanakh when we went learned from him. So he deserves from us that recognition and to close our learning with that quote-unquote secular Israeli voice that recognizes the value of Tanakh, even if you're not as observant as some others would wish. בסדר? Also, Yitzhak Shalev was the uncle of Meir Shalev, whose novels we so much enjoy to read. If you do, A Pigeon and the Boy and Blue Mountain and others. And he will sound to you like that new pioneering second Aliyah voice. Thank you very much, tradition. Thank you very much, this and that. I now have Eretz Israel. My Jewishness is different. But I will suggest, before we are done in 5 minutes, I will suggest another reading.
Just for a sec.
Yeah.
You're all going to do me a very big favor, okay? First, I'll adjust the air conditioning one last time. Okay? I have to go into the shul because I'm the only rabbi in the building today, okay? When we're finished, which is in a few more minutes, you can take 10 more minutes if you want, because as long as I can get in, I want you all to stand up and give Rachel a big, rousing standing ovation.
Not now.
It is an honor to have a great teacher among us. Then I want you to come into the shul and join us, because at the end of service, about 11:30 or so, she's going to teach us Bialik, okay? And there are handouts that I'm going to try to get out to everybody, if Doug, you'll help me, okay? And then at the end of services, we'll go next door and have lunch, Shili Rienos, and at 12:30 we'll meet in Sher Lapati to study with Rachel once again. So I want to thank you so very, very much.
You're so welcome.
And this is the most wonderfully warm, hospitable, well-trained congregation.
Absolutely.
They're going to do everything I just asked them to do, and I'm going to
Okay,
excuse
I'm
myself.
so sorry, but you'll keep the Shalev
I've
poem.
read this with you in Israel.
You did, okay. What I did not get from Sidurim and Machzorim, I read from the hills. So Toda Rabbah, books, Cheder, Yeshiva, I made Aliyah, I'm a Sabra, I'm climbing mountains. I don't need that. Among the hills I utter all my supplications and praises. The deep ravine taught me to cry out, and from a dungeon, and many of your prayers I learned from the blue sky. So it will seem to you like total negation that everything that went before me. The book, the word kind of Judaism, gone, and now it's tachlis in the mountains, in the experience, and so on. I saw mountaintops engraved with all the liturgy, all the verses etched in exposed weather-beaten slopes, and all the words of anger in the cliffs. I have my whole Torah and Tanakh in the land of Israel. I'm totally rejecting that other knowledge, or am I? Could somebody who is not fluent in Torah, in Isaiah, in prayer, write a poem like this? No way. The poem that sounds like a negation is a total affirmation. I am writing to you this because I know Sidurim and Machzorim. I am writing this to you because I know the supplications from Tehillim, because I know Isaiah, because I know the two separate times when the Ten Commandments, because there are allusions for that in the Hebrew to the two times. Okay? So it may seem to you sometimes that Israeli culture had taken a different path. It is somewhat different, but we go back together to the same sources. Toda Rabba, Shabbat Shalom.